Absolutely nothing beats windshield time. Welcome back to Dan the Road Trip Guy, a podcast where we have candid conversations about life lessons learned on the road. I'm your host, Bimmer enthusiast and road trip extraordinaire, Dan Neal. And now, on to the show. I am excited to kick off Season 2 of Dan the Road Trip Guy. Ironically, the first non-family person I had in 2022 was the wife of my guest today. Julianne Gardner was my guest back on July 4th as they traveled back from Wisconsin. Well, today I've got her husband, Ted Gardner, longtime friend of mine, probably 25 plus years. Our kids went to elementary school and high school together. And so I'm just excited to talk to Ted. I thought about naming this Trains, Toys, Travel, Hiking, because that's kind of how I think of Ted. And welcome to the show, Ted.
Thank you, Dan. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Yeah, and so we're tooling around Cincinnati. This is kind of rare that I get to ride around and talk to you, but I'm really glad you're here.
I'm excited about going back to the old neighborhood.
Yeah, we're driving through where we met, and where you had a store, and all that, and we'll get to that. But hey, I like to kick things off with give my guests a couple minutes. Just who is Ted Gardner?
Well, Dan, you have known me for a while, but I'm kind of an ordinary guy, semi-entrepreneur. Of course, the things I'm most proud of course, is that I'm a husband to my beautiful wife, Julianne, as you mentioned earlier. I'm a brother. I'm a friend. But most of all, of course, I'm a father of two wonderful daughters. They are now age 28 and 30, and they are both independently living. One, Grace, my younger daughter, is up in Milwaukee, and Laura, my older daughter, is married, living with her husband, Cody, down in Greenville, South Carolina. So they're both kind of split evenly.
Hey, there's the old store.
And there's the old store.
Yeah.
Well, it's now a yoga studio.
Sorry.
That's okay.
How could that be? Anyway, we're driving through our old neighborhood.
Driving through the old neighborhood.
Yeah, anyway, continue.
And so they're both kind of evenly split from Cincinnati. Milwaukee's about 6.5 hours. Greenville is about 6.5, 7 hours south. So it gives us certainly numerous opportunities for road trips. But mostly what I consider myself to be is lucky. And I think I'm a very lucky individual. I guess they say you make your own luck, but I feel like a lot of stuff has come my way providentially. So that's kind of who I am in a nutshell. Just, not a famous guy or anything like that, but
neither am I.
That's the best way to be, I think.
Yeah.
I guess, well, we might get to this a little bit later, but driving through Terrace Park.
I'm going to drive through the old neighborhood.
Go down.
I haven't been through here in, I don't remember when.
Western Avenue. The only time I really come back is to go to the post office because it's very convenient.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
But I don't go this way.
You live closer. So.
But I can recall, of course, when I had the toy store here in Terrace Park, that I feel like I knew absolutely everyone.
Yeah.
You know, I would walk down the streets, I would drive down the street, there'd be a parent, there'd be a child. And now I come through here, and that was such a long time ago, it seems like that this neighborhood turns over, I don't really know anybody anymore.
Yeah, same here.
Except for you. Except you don't live in Terrace Park.
I don't live
anymore.
here
That's
either.
Right.
So, yeah, we always bought our birthday gifts at Ted's Toys and Trains. Or was it Ted's Trains and Toys?
It started out as Ted's Trains and Toys, and then it got misconstrued as just a train store.
Yeah.
Which is, kind of a geeky thing.
Yeah.
Because, a lot of people who are into model trains and electric trains are kind of geeky. That was the perception. So I traded the names, Toys and Trains, and I think that helped a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I started getting more into toys. That's what people really wanted. And the birthday presents was It's kind of how the kids went to college.
Yeah.
For the longest period of time.
What was your first car?
Oh my gosh. Well, I was also going to say that.
Oh, go ahead.
Ted Gardner is not a car guy per se. I know that you like to talk cars, and I know where to put the gas. I used to know how to change the oil, all that, but now cars are too fancy. But anyway, gosh, my first car. I was a senior in high school. I had just gotten into college, and I needed a way to get back and forth. So I'd had a little bit of money saved up, so I went out and got myself a 1968 Ford Galaxy 500.
Nice. That's a race car.
It was a beast. Well,
Sort of.
sort of. It wasn't aerodynamic or anything like that, but it certainly was plentiful room-wise and all that. That was my first car, and a funny story about the first car is that, it had there's a hawk in the yard. Yeah, just
Hey, we're driving by this house here on Amherst. Linda and I rented this house.
Did you really?
Yeah, in 1988.
Well, it's a cute little thing, but
Yeah.
it looks like it's seen better days.
Yeah, well. Yeah.
It's a rental. That's usually what happens with rentals.
Anyway, go ahead.
But, it had FORD on the back, and it was an old car. I got it for $1,000, and the letters fell off. I can't remember if I backed into something or if the glue let loose or whatever. So the O, R, and the D fell off. So I put them back up. And I said, well, let's just have a little fun here. Let's put the letters on differently. So I put the letters on FROD. So the car became known as the Fraud.
That's great. That is great.
And I drove it to school. I went to school in upstate New York, small little liberal arts university. And the drive was long, about 10 hours. But that car got me back and forth to school so many times. It was really quite an amazing car.
Did you keep that car through college then?
I did not. The problem that it had was that it didn't like the cold weather. And here I am in upstate New York, and you get a lot of cold weather. And I got tired of, this is about as far as my mechanic ability goes.
Yeah, sure.
I got tired of sticking the screwdriver in the carburetor to keep it open while you were trying
so
to...
you're trying to start it.
trying to
pour
start
some
it.
gas in. Maybe.
I think I did that maybe a couple times.
Yeah, that's real
I was
smart.
afraid it was going to blow up or something. But, usually the car would sit there through the winter and not go anywhere because I couldn't get it started. So I figured I need a little bit more of a reliable vehicle.
Well, what was that second? Did you sell? Oh, so did you sell that first car?
I think I traded it in on the new car.
Probably best.
I probably got I don't know what, a couple $100 for it.
Yeah, sure.
Well, my next car is like a complete 180, much to my mom's chagrin. I got a baby blue Pontiac Firebird.
Ooh. Is that new or used?
It was new.
Wow.
So I got a new Pontiac Firebird, and I brought it home proud as punch. I wanted to show my mom and dad, and Dad thought it was cool. Mom took one look at it and went, "Are you gonna take those decals off?" I'm like, "No, Mom. That's the coolest part of the whole car is those decals." It had a big Firebird, on the hood.
Was this a Trans Am?
It was not a Trans Am.
Oh, but it had the Firebird.
It had the Firebird on the hood. It had the little Firebirds on the side panels. Oh, it was sweet.
Wow.
So I had that.
Did it have the T-top? Did it have a T-top?
Did not have a T-top.
No T-top. Okay.
No, it was kind of plain and simple. I was never really... So this was a bit of a change for me, a little bit more of a fancy vehicle.
Yeah.
Well, I took that to school my sophomore year.
Okay.
And people saw that and thought, "Ted, that car just doesn't look like you." I mean, I had this beat up 1968 Ford Fraud, and it just doesn't look like you. I was like, well, it gets me back and forth and it starts.
Yeah.
And I just a little bit of a chick magnet, I guess. Kind of a tool around campus in this cool little hot car.
Seats, right?
Yeah. But I had that, and I had that for a couple of years, and then after college, I came home and got a job. Years. I don't know how long I had that car, but my next car was like a Nissan Turbo. I don't even remember. It might have been a Supra or something. Yeah, I know. It's like, what?
Maybe you should have kept these cars.
I should have kept these cars because you can't find these cars anymore.
No, the Supra. Jeez.
I think so. And it was a stick.
Wow.
It was a manual, so I learned to drive a manual, and that came in handy.
Yeah.
And
everybody should learn to drive a manual.
I think so. It's very important.
It's a lost art.
It is a lost art.
Yeah. Hey, that takes me to. That's great. kept those.
Yeah.
Oh, well. I've got a whole list of those. Most people do.
Well, the car after the Nissan was a Toyota pickup because I needed that for work. Kind of right out here where we're headed right now was where one night I'm coming home and all of a sudden there's this head of a deer that bashes into my windshield. And that was the end of the Toyota pickup truck.
Oh,
one of those little mini pickup trucks.
Yeah.
Really nice vehicle, but hitting the deer was the end of that. So anyway.
Hey, road trips. Epic road trip in your life. The big one that just stands out. You go, wow, if I'd do that again today. Or
well,
maybe you wouldn't. But
there's several of them, but there's one that does stand out. It was the epic family Western road trip.
Okay. Like your
my family.
Yes.
My Julianne and my 2 daughters.
Okay.
It was the epic Western road trip. I got over 2.5 weeks off from work. This is a funny story because we had this road trip planned. All I had planned was the route or the route. Do you say route or route?
Either one.
It doesn't
depends on where you're from.
Right, exactly.
I say, I don't know what I say.
Well, we'll figure that
now
out.
I'm confused.
So all I had basically was the approximate route, and that's the way I like to take a road trip. I don't like to have...
It's a great road trip.
But I mean, I don't like to have hotels lined up in advance because you never know how far you're going to get in a day.
Right.
And it turned out to be so true. We had this
Change
planned.
your mind where you're going to.
And you can change your mind where you're going. So we had planned to do this months in advance, and near the approach time to when the trip was going to take, somebody planned a party. One of our good friends planned a party. It was going to be a nice big party. So I decided, well, we need to go to the party, but we also need to leave on this road trip the next morning. Sure. And I said, well, golly, I don't want to go to the party and then get up really early. So we decided to leave from the party.
Sure, why not?
We went and picked up the girls. They were at one of my parents, or Julianne's parents, their grandparents. We went and picked up the girls, and we started driving west at 10:30 at night. And we were going to just see how far we could get. I started driving. I was the one to start, and I got as far as the Illinois state line. And I said, Julianne, I can't do this anymore. I'm starting to fall asleep. Kids are asleep in the back seat. Julianne was asleep, so she takes over. And the next thing I remember is waking up and seeing the sunrise over the St. Louis Arch, which was beautiful.
Yeah, nothing beats a sunrise.
Nothing beats a sunrise, especially with the arch. That was cool. And so we continue, and you drive through Kansas. You know, Kansas is probably the worst part of the trip.
You got to do it once. And it's best to do it at the heat of summer.
Yes, which is what we did.
With no AC.
We had AC.
Okay.
So I'm sensing that you've done that before.
I have.
Oof. Yeah, that's brutal.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we stopped at a park and had a picnic lunch, and we had our swimsuits. So we jumped in the lake and took a little swim.
Nice.
And then we carried on, and we got all the way to the Colorado state line. There's a town there called Colorado.
Okay.
If you're familiar with that, which is a combination of Kansas and Colorado. So it's like on the
That's
state
creative.
line. It's very creative.
It's like, whoa, what are we going to name the town?
I
have an idea.
Well, at least it wasn't Coloanzas.
Yeah,
exactly. That would have been bad. So we found a place to stay there. And we had only planned on staying in Colorado maybe 3 days.
Sure.
We ended up spending a week because Colorado is a fabulous state.
And you guys like to hike.
And we like to hike. And we visited the Rocky Mountain National Park, and we hiked, and forgotten how cold it gets at 14,000 feet. Yeah. So we were a little bit short on fleecies and things like that, but we struggled through.
What year?
This was 2000. The girls were 9 and 7.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Sure.
At that time. And just, and we took our time. We did the train rides, Hyde Silverton. We did Black Canyon of the Gunnison. I don't know if you've ever been there, but that's a fabulous mini Grand Canyon. Mesa Verde, which was a very spiritual place. And then, you do the classic things, the Four Corners, very touristy.
Yeah.
There's a picture of the four of us standing in all 4 states at the same time. Ha ha ha. And we did the north rim of the Grand Canyon.
Okay.
We camped. We camped at Mesa Verde, and we camped at the north rim, which is a little harder to get to, a little more primitive.
Yeah.
I've never been to the south rim.
Okay.
So just the north rim. And then we went down to Arizona. Julianne went to Northern Arizona University, so we went to Flagstaff. She was a ski bum, which some people may remember from her podcast in Taos, New Mexico for 3.5 years. So we went and revisited that, and we made the big loop, and we came back through Dodge City. You do all that, and then hustle back through Kansas and all that again. 17 days.
That sounds like a great
So it was epic. It was epic. And that, the girls remember it.
Yeah.
Got a big photo album. Yeah, it's really, that was a great trip.
Yeah.
And we've taken many others, but that's the one that really stands out.
Those are pretty epic. And, I've only done 1 2-week vacation in my whole career.
Oh, man.
And Linda and I did a road trip, and it's still, I'd do it again today.
Did you go out west too?
Yeah, we did. We flew because I had seen Kansas.
So seen enough of it.
We flew to Denver, and we headed out from there. We made a big loop and lap. To me, every road trip needs to look like a lap because it's kind of like when you're hiking. I'm always looking for the loop trail.
Yeah.
Those out and back trails, I don't know.
I don't mind. I do prefer the loop. I don't mind the out and back if it's pretty enough, because the way I look at it is you're going one way, right? You see things one way.
Yeah.
And then you're coming back, you see things from a different perspective.
That's a good point.
So,
I'll remember that.
As a matter of fact, we were just down at the gorge a couple weekends ago, and we did an out and back to a waterfall. Beautiful. So, yes, I love to hike, and if we are traveling, we always look for the best hike around. That may or may not be before or after we find the best brewery in the area.
Okay.
Because that's one of the other things we do.
Yeah, that's cool.
Google's great. Hiking near me.
Yeah.
And then post-hike brewery near me.
That's great. Hey, shifting gears a little bit. We talked a little bit about...
Isn't this an automatic?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, I mean, I could make it shift.
Oh, I guess you could.
I could, but then that'd mess up.
Yeah. Sorry.
That's great. Shifting gears.
Yes. Sorry.
Back to, so you grew up in Cincinnati.
Yeah, born and raised.
I know you from Ted's Trains and Toys and Trains.
Right.
Did you grow up going, hey, when I'm older, I'm going to have a toy and train store? Or how did that come to be? Because that's all I've ever known you as
is the
Ted's Toys and Trains.
Toy store guy.
Yeah. How did that happen?
I don't know. Does anybody think like that when they're young, what they're going to do and what they're going to be? No, I went to school. I went to a liberal arts school because my parents wanted me to go there. And, because you figure, liberal arts, you get exposed to all these different fields, and you can pick one. It didn't help me a bit. When I got out of college, I was just as lost as when I went in. So, no, I did not have that in my mind. How did I get involved?
Did you like trains? What came first, trains or toys?
Well, I did got a train set when I was a little kid, of course.
Oh, cool.
I think we all did, didn't we?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I got a hand-me-down from my brother.
Oh, too bad.
Yeah.
But toys and trains. Yeah, I had a train set, and I always did like trains. So I got a job with a friend of mine, after a slew of odd jobs after graduating from college, much to my parents' dismay.
Okay.
I finally got a job with a friend of mine in landscaping. We had a client who had a garden railway in his backyard.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Now, I don't know if you're familiar with what garden railways are,
those.
but large-scale trains with trestles and bridges and tunnels and villages set up and waterfalls and water features. Really amazing. And I had never seen this before, and I was just amazed. And the landscaping went on for a while, and after a while I was like, I really don't want to do this anymore.
I'm out.
So then an opportunity, I had enough of landscaping, and I remembered this one client we had who had the garden railway, and an opportunity came up, just providential. See, there's that luck thing again. That there's a store in town years ago, they're no longer around, called Garden Railway Company. and they actually installed these garden railways in clients' yards, sold electric trains, kind of high-end German trains. And I applied for the job as kind of an assistant manager, and I got the job.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I got the job. So I started working at the Gardner Railway Company. I became very familiar with trains and kind of gathered my own clientele because I took on one particular brand of trains, German brand called Marklin.
Yeah, very high-end train.
Very high-end. And there was a very particular clientele who liked those. So that kind of became my baby. And 5 years I was there, and all of a sudden, the owner, very eccentric guy, lots of money. He didn't really need the toy store or the train store to make a living.
It's kind of a hobby.
Kind of a hobby. He decided he'd had enough. So that was the end of that. So I decided, well, what the heck? I've got this great clientele. I think I'll start my own train store.
Okay.
This was before the internet really took off. So you could still do a mom and pop brick and mortar.
People actually walked in.
People still actually walked into stores and bought stuff. So I started a train store on my own in Milford.
They're at the building's gone now.
They're
right?
at the intersection where the brewery is right now.
Yeah,
Little
right.
Miami Brewery was
I remember that white building.
white building.
Wasn't there a car lot there too?
There was a car lot, Villardo's car lot.
Yeah.
And he was right behind me, and I had the building out front that faced the street.
Yeah. So you just did trains there.
I just did trains. I started off with just trains, and things were going splendidly. I actually got a job building a train layout. We're closing down Fernald, and they needed to take the waste away out west and dump it, or whatever they do with nuclear waste or Fernald waste. So they wanted a replica of their train layout so they could figure out logistically how to move the train cars around and all that. So that was my first real. I got paid handsomely for that. And I designed and built this train layout according to their...
Wow. I wonder what happened to
They're
it.
set up there. It could still be in storage out there. They could have just trashed it. I don't know. But they definitely used it. So that was cool. But then the kids were young. The kids were growing up. And I decided, I've always liked toys.
Sure.
So let's start bringing in a few toys. Let's try to expand the customer base.
And these weren't Toys R Us toys. These were cool toys.
Kind of specialty toys because I didn't really want to do the Toys R Us thing. But my first real toy was something called the Stomp Rocket. I don't know if you remember the Stomp Rocket.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
It was this plastic bladder with a hose that went to and you put the Nerf rocket on it and stomped it. And it would go 100 feet. It was an amazing toy. And I sold the heck out of those toys. So I started carrying more and more toys, and then the Milford location got to be too small, not right for me, so I moved to Terrace Park, which is just about a quarter mile down the street.
Not in a large space, though.
At another small space, but it was a little bit larger. And that's where the toys really started to take off. The trains, of course, were going great. The toys started to take off, went.
Yeah.
And then finally that space, I kind of outgrew that space, and then I moved the store to Madera,
Into a
much larger space, and things were going really great. And then I realized things weren't going so great after a while. People would come in with their smartphones and take pictures of the toys and see that they could get it for $1 cheaper on Amazon, and they would order a toy right off the internet out of my store. So
always talked about that. Yeah.
So that was a bit of a drag. So I finally decided, and the trains started slowing down too because everything went online, and people who had garages full of trains were selling them. They didn't have stores. So I said, it's time to get out.
Yeah.
So I finally closed the toy store. Jeff Bezos put me out of business. That's one claim to fame. So then, that was the end of the toy store, and I moved on. So that's kind of a long story.
It's funny when you think about retail, and you were in retail for a long time, and now I drive around small towns, and it seems like now what's putting, our family had a family grocery store, but what I'm seeing in these small towns is what's the Amazon for the retailers today, these mom and pops, is the dollar stores.
Yes.
That are popping up everywhere.
Dollar General, dollar store.
Every town I drive into, I'm like, ugh.
And, it's all inferior product. And
there's no relationships.
there's no relationships.
No relationships.
And honestly, you can't get anything for $1 there anymore anyway.
No, what a silly name.
It's like it should be the $5 store.
Yeah.
$5 General.
I appreciate that. That's yeah, that's great. I actually always wondered how you got into the business, because you obviously were doing it when I met you. But
yeah, it was kind of a long journey. And I had the toy store on my own in its many iterations for almost 20 years.
Yeah.
So that's enough for anybody in retail.
Yeah. Hey, you and Julianne, you've traveled a lot, especially in these last years. Out of the country, in the country,
Right.
hiking. Go up to Wisconsin a lot. You have a place up there.
Yeah.
Anything on your bucket list that just jumps off that got to do this before I leave?
Well, there are a couple things, and I'm thinking about this the other day, that we talked about this for a while. We have a little teardrop camper trailer. It's just perfect for the two of us.
Right.
I want to drag the trailer up to the northeastern Canadian maritime provinces.
Okay.
So it's a long drive.
Long drive.
But since I'm almost semi-retired, almost sort of kind of,
we'll get to that.
that would be probably a month-long trip. But I've always wanted to go up there, Prince Edward Island, Nova Scotia, take the ferries across the water, Newfoundland, Labrador. So that's a bucket list trip. And another one, because this is kind of fun, and I think this is on a lot of people's bucket lists, is to visit every state in the Union, in the United States.
Yeah, I plotted that route out if you need it.
Oh, really?
Touches all 48 and plus Alaska, and then you're going to have to hire somebody to fly over to.
Yeah, they haven't built that bridge yet to Hawaii. So, funny as that is, I've only got one state left.
Wow.
And it's Alaska.
Wow.
So, I had the great fortune years ago to be able to travel to Hawaii.
Yeah.
But I have been to every single state in the continental United States. And so Alaska is on the bucket list as well. And that is also another hook up the camper, drag it out west, drive the Alaska Highway, visit Alaska.
I'll tell you, once you map that out, it's kind of like,
holy moly.
That's the long drive.
It's a long drive. I mean, just to get to Canada out there is long enough.
Yeah.
But then you look at the map and you see what you have to do to get to Alaska. It's just, it's almost overwhelming. But I love a road trip.
Yeah, those are two great.
I love a road trip, and I love my road trip companion. We travel together well.
Yeah, you do.
So, and that's one thing I've learned is that, man, you just have to. You're in close quarters for a long period of time, like in the car, and then you climb into the camper. You're in close quarters for a long period of time.
Yeah.
You have to get along. There's a lot of compromise.
Yeah.
So it really helps. It helps strengthen our marriage.
Yeah.
I guess there's a metaphor on that. Life on the road can help strengthen your marriage, or it can,
It's probably good you both like to do that.
We do.
That would create a problem otherwise.
It could very much create a problem, but we both really enjoy that. And I tend to do the majority of the driving.
Okay.
Because I am unable to read or look at my phone in the car. I'll get car sick. So I might as well do all the driving. So I do all the driving.
Yeah. It's always nice when you don't have to get in a big hurry.
Right. And that's why I like doing a road trip without really any plans, places to stay.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, we got to get to such and such because of the hotel.
Yeah.
And we've always had good luck with that. You just stop and hope you find something. And
if you don't, guess what?
You move on.
The seats go back.
Or the seats go back. And actually with the camper, that's not much of an issue.
Yeah, for sure. That's great.
But we've had some great trips. I think one of the, we like to take hiking trips and explore new places. I think one of the best trips we've ever taken, the one that sticks in my memory the most, is the one in Patagonia.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. We, that's Argentina,
That's
Chile.
kind of your favorite.
Oh, that was epic. It was a road trip of sorts, but we weren't driving. We had hired a company to tour us
Get you
around.
Yeah. Kind of nice when you're in a place you don't know.
Yeah. And, it's such a huge area with incredible mountains, incredibly wide open spaces. That was just an epic trip. And we went, one claim to fame is we've been to the southernmost city in the world.
Oh, what is that?
And it's called Ushuaia, and it's in Argentina.
Nice.
And it's the southernmost city in the world. So
I just did some Google driving in, what's the country next to Argentina?
Chile?
No. Uruguay?
Oh, there's Uruguay. Yeah, Uruguay's on the coast.
So I drove around on Google. I like to do that.
Yeah.
And then I ended up in Argentina. You can't get there very easily.
No, it's a long journey.
Yeah. So.
But you fly into Buenos Aires and then you fly wherever you want to go, because if you look at the map, Argentina is a very long, large country.
Yeah, very. Yeah.
With a lot going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, Uruguay, actually, I've read a lot about that. The coastal drive in Uruguay is should beautiful. Be on your bucket list.
Yeah.
Once again, bucket list.
Yeah. Road trip with anybody, living or deceased.
Yeah.
Who would it be? Where would you go? Of course, what would you drive? Maybe that blue Firebird.
I'd drive that Firebird if I still had it. Except that's probably not a very good road trip car. It's a little confining. You need a little bit more room than that.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's a really good question, Dan. Fun fact, my grandfather, my mother's father, was an engineer, and he worked for the Bureau of Public Roads out in the Northwest, so based out of Portland, Oregon.
Oh, wow.
And he did a lot of engineering. He was not the main engineer. He was an engineer on a lot of these roads. You've probably heard of a lot of them. There's the Mount Hood Highway, the Loop Highway, which he engineered and put in where there was no road before. It was just horseback and hiking. He did the Columbia River Highway. He did part of the Oregon Coast Highway. He did approach roads to Yellowstone.
Wow.
So I think the answer to your question is I would want, and unfortunately he died in 1968. So
did you know him?
I did. I was only 12 or 13 when he passed.
Yeah.
So, and like I said, my parents were from Oregon, so he was out in Portland.
Yeah.
So it was very challenging to see him. I probably only met him 3 or 4 times in my life, but a wonderfully elegant man. I would take a road trip with him if I could. And I would take a drive on his roads. To pick his brain. The most famous road that I think he was an engineer on is the Going to the Sun Road in Glacier.
Oh, wow.
National
I've
Park.
been on that road.
We've been on that road as well, and it is a fabulous drive.
It is.
And it's an engineering marvel.
Especially when it's not snowing.
Well, especially when it's not snowing, but that's tricky because it can be snowing in the middle of the summer.
It can.
And the road is closed frequently because of snow. So I would take a drive with him, and we did this trip. Julianne and I did this trip a couple years ago. We rented a car, so that was another great road trip. Drove the road probably 5 or 6 times, just back and forth from one end to the other. And if you ever get the chance to drive that road, that is definitely one of the epic road trips of the world.
Yeah, I would agree.
Just cobbled onto the mountainsides and cliffs, and they made a good point of kind of making it blend in so it doesn't really like stand out. So I would do that with him, pick his brain. Wow. How did you get this road up here? And then one other thing that he did was he did about 850 miles of the Alaskan Highway.
Oh, really?
The western part of the Alaska Highway. Huh. In order to strike off Alaska on my bucket list of 50 states, I would climb into the car with Grandpa and pick his brain about that as well. That's who I would do. Sorry I didn't know him better than I did.
I know. Fun.
Yeah. And I would do that. He died too soon.
Yeah, for sure. Favorite tunes when you're in the car? Do you listen to tunes or?
Mostly in town, I listen to the radio. Yeah. I listen to NPR.
Okay.
because they've always got something interesting on. But tunes, yeah, road trip tunes. We kind of have road trip playlists.
Yeah.
Radar Love is a good one. Radar Love. The Doors,
Okay.
Riders on the Storm is a good road trip song.
Yeah.
I'm kind of a southern rock kind of guy, so Allman Brothers.
Yeah.
Anything that's got a good beat.
Leonard Skinner,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Anything that's got a good beat, and I can kind of synchronize it with the road.
Yeah. Yep, that's how I like it. It's like, this is what I'm feeling.
This is what I'm feeling right now. Yeah.
So today you're back in the sort of retail world, I guess.
I am. Yeah.
So you didn't retire. You left toys and trains behind.
It's kind of a semi-retirement because I really only do it 3 or 4 days a week. Not actually sitting.
It's the perfect job.
It's
right?
the perfect job. It really is. But I sell Amish-made storage buildings, cabins. People like to turn them into tiny homes. So I have a lot here in Milford, Ohio.
Yeah.
And that has turned out to be a very good... We've had a long-term relationship with an Amish family out in Adams County.
Sure.
They make Julianne's raised beds for one small garden out of cedar. And so we've had a long-term relationship with them. And after the toy store closed, I really didn't know what I was going to do. I worked with Julianne for a while back into kind of the landscaping gardening thing, which I didn't really want to get back into, but I did for a while. And then they wanted to start building these sheds and cabins, and they asked me if I wanted to work for them and run the lot and sell sheds.
Nice.
I said sure. And it's turned out to be a really nice, I can get away for periods of time, because I can do a lot of it remotely.
Yep.
So it's been once again, that providential thing, the luck thing coming my way, which I'm always so grateful for. And they make a good product, and I'm happy to do it. And then, I can get away and do my 1 week, 2 week trips up to Wisconsin or overseas or wherever we want to go.
Wherever you want to go, right?
Yeah, it gives me a lot of flexibility. So I'm very happy where I am right now.
Well, we're finishing our little road trip.
Well, look
here.
at this. We're back.
Isn't this amazing?
We did a loop.
We took a loop. We spent some time together.
Yeah, and always good, Dan.
And this was great.
Well,
this was really great.
It's a lot of fun.
I really appreciate you doing this. I know this is kind of crazy, but maybe they'll put us on Netflix.
What would they put us on Netflix for? What would that possibly be interesting for
Dan and
people?
Ted road trip.
And do this more often.
Yeah.
And not just around Cincinnati,
right?
Not just around Terrace Park.
Yeah, we just go. Here's where we're going to go.
Right.
Okay. How do people find you?
Well,
not you.
Yeah, the business.
The
business is called CincinnatiSheds.com.
Cincinnati Sheds.
That's Cincinnati, all spelled out. Sheds, plural.com. Email address is sales@CincinnatiSheds.com.
There you go.
And if you need storage, if you're thinking about a tiny home, or if you're thinking about getting a piece of land and putting a cabin on it, we've got the product for you. So there's kind of a little pitch.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. All right, this has been a pleasure.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank
Always
you.
a pleasure to spend time with you.
Yeah.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Dan the Road Trip Guy, and we look forward to having you back again next time. In the meantime, if you want to find me, you can find me on the internet at Danny, D-A-N-N-Y, Neal, Neal.com. Until we meet up again, keep having conversations and keep driving.